Okay, so next topic that we are going to talk about is data frames in pandas. It's one of the most interesting topic and why we extensively make use of pandas. So a little bit of theory before I can jump into discussing data frames. So I have few links from which I will talk about briefly about data frames, and then we'll jump onto our programming. Okay, so this is one place where I found a, description of data frames. So let me go to this one here. So basically, if you will see, it is a two-dimensional size mutable, potentially heterogeneous tabular data structure with labeled axis, rows and columns. So earlier on, we looked at series, right? Series was a single row, one dimensional, right? Basically you can call it, but here you can have multi-dimensional, uh, having rows and columns. Now arithmetic operations aligns on both rows and column label. You can do operations with the help of rows as well as columns, which I'm going to show to you in some time. So it's more of like a dictionary with a key. It can be thought of a dict like container of series object. Why series object? Because in some time we will see that the data frame itself is a collection of multiple series. What is a series? It's a single row. When you put together multiple rows, it forms a data frame. Fine. So having said that, let's look at some programming to consolidate these facts. So just let me bring up my PyCharm here. So I'll close all of this. So let's get started with data frame. So I will just now I'll be sharing a small piece of code with you, and the reason is that we'll not do the whole typing because it takes a little while to get to create a data frame, I should say. So what I'm going to do is uh, these are two imports which we already know. Now I'm also from NumPy, I'm importing a random this here module. Fine. So that I'll set np.random.seed.101. What is the purpose of setting this is that once we set the seed as 101, we all will get to see similar values as an output, right? That is the only purpose of this. Now I'm going to share this with you. Now this rand generates random numbers in 5 rows and 4 columns, right? Now a little while back we had seen that in the earlier series we just specified rows. Here you have an option to specify rows. So since there are 5 rows, I said R1 to R5 and column 4 of them. So I have it from C1 to C4, right? Now let me for the time being comment this, or let me remove all of this from here. I'll take it one by one. Okay, so let's try to run this program and see what is the output we will get. So if I run this program, you will see that I have a random number generated, and it is in 5 rows and 4 columns for me, right? We will try it with our own two-dimensional array that we'll create, but for now we have just made use of rand array and dn. So let me share this code with you. Okay, so I started with this program. Now what I'm going to do is, let's create a two-dimensional array, right? And I'm going to convert generally the way we do a two-dimensional array creation. I'm going to do that. So let me take this and let me put it here, right? So this would be a better example you can correlate with. So it has what you say, one this is a 2D array with 3 rows, as you can see, R1, R2, R3 and column 5, right? Then I print that, and I also try to display the shape of that particular two-dimensional array that I have with me. So if I right click and run this program, let's see what I get to see. Okay, so this is a program with 3 rows and 5 columns, and the shape of this is 3 by 5, right? So basically we can create a multi-dimensional array, right? Now what if I go ahead and say, let me take this, what if I go ahead and I say print of df, this is my data frame, right? So I will take this. In the df I'm going to specify for example uh, let's say c1. Okay, so if I do this, what is the output I'm going to get? Let's see. So you will see that corresponding to c1, which is this value, this value, and this value, this is why what I end up seeing, right? So given a data frame, I can fetch content of the entire column with using this entry, data frame c1 in single quotes, right? Now you would be wondering that what is this. I hope you remember from our discussion which we are having little while earlier, that if it is displaying something like this, we remember that it was happening in the series, right? Yes, no? So if I go ahead and copy this piece of code and I try to display the type of this type of open bracket and close bracket here, right? And if I try to run this program, you will see that it displays that it is a Pandas series, right? So basically this data frame is what? It is nothing but combination of lot of series put together. Series was one dimensional, it is multi-dimensional, right? So this is how you create a data frame. This is how you access it column by column, and then this is just to verify that the type of that particular column or the entire column is nothing but a pandas series, right? So please try this program. I'll ping this much piece of code to you, and the rest you have to play around with. Okay, so continuing our discussion, so some questions from a few of you. So what I'm going to do is, what if okay, so to make this a simpler piece of code, I will create a copy of this 1_1. I'll make it. Okay, so let me remove this one to avoid confusion. Now what okay, what I'm going to do is, here I will, for the time being, oh, it was this one, just 1 minute. Okay, so just so a little more around this concept what we just studied. So I'll create a new file here, _1. So all of this is accessible to in Bitbucket in some time. So let me go ahead and remove this for now. I don't need this. I can keep this. Okay. Now what if I go ahead and basically in this case I have defined my array and I have specified rows and column. What if I remove the columns? In that case, let's see what happens. So I will go ahead and print of df2, right? If I do like this, let's see what is the output I am getting. So as you will see, it has automatically assigned columns as 0 1 2 3 4, right? What if I also remove the rows as well? So if I remove this, right click, run here, right? So here also it works perfectly fine, right? So if you do not give it as your own choice, then it will go ahead and assign 0 to whatever appropriate index that is to be allowed there, right? Now coming on on the next topic, which is columns. So what I am going to do is I already have this piece of code with me. Okay, so let me, this I have already shared. I will delete all this and we'll start off. Okay, so this is a data frame which I already have, right? So let me just first of all display and show the output to you, and then we'll do some playing around with this code. Okay, so let's say I right click and run this, and this is the data I get, right? Now a little while back I showed you few things. We'll just repeat it and then we'll add more to it. So what if I say data frame open bracket close bracket, and I say here I have column 1, right? So C1. So C1 is going to display me that particular series, and if I display the type of that, it will say that it is a series, right? So this is something we have already tried. We'll add more to this particular program. So right click, run as. So here I get to see that particular column only, right? C1, which is these values, right? So, and data type is 64, and this is coming from this display series. Now what if I want to display more than one column simultaneously? So in that case, I have to pass a list in this. I'll pass a list here, right? And I'll say comma C2. Okay, in this case I end up getting two columns simultaneously. So if you will see, I'm getting C1 as well as C2, right? Now another way of accessing this is that, suppose uh, I don't want to access it with this way. I also have an option to simply go and say dot of C1. Okay, so if I try it like this, let's see what happens. Right click, run. Okay, so here also I end up getting the same result which I was getting from here, right? So dot also I can do. Now sometimes this is not a preferable way, and the reason being that I mean, dot is basically used for calling a attribute or maybe a function of that particular object, for example. So you have a choice if you want to use it, but you should be aware that you have this option, right? Now what if I have a data frame already? What if I want to create a new column? So I have column from 1 to 4, right? So it is 1 to 4. I want to add one more column. So what do? I say df3, I'll say new underscore call equal to df. I'll make it column 1, and then I'll make it df3 and then c2, right? So it's an addition of the content of C1 as well as C2, right? Now let me after I do this, let me print off again df3, and let me try to run this program, and let's see what happens. So as you will see that I have got one more column created in my data frame, and that is the content of addition of this column as well as this column, and this change is reflected in the original data frame which we were working. Originally it was like this, right? And after that it was basically with a new column here. Okay, so please try this program. Now let's look at some drop operations. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm for the time being going to remove this. Okay, so this piece of code, which is something which we already know of. I mean, I have created a data frame and I'm just displaying. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to drop a particular column C4, right? If I try to do this, what happens? Let's see what it says to me. Run as this, right? So it says key error, this not found in axis, right? So whenever you are dropping a column in data frame, you also have to specify the axis as well, right? Now what is axis? This particular link talks about axis. I have read it from a few places, but of the various discussions which are there, I found this to be easiest to understand, right? So let's look at this. You can read any one of this, whichever you can make sense out of, but for me it was this one which was help me give an insight of what is axis. So what makes more sense to me is to say this: axis 0 will act on all rows in each column, meaning that all the rows in each columns, right? So 0 means it is referring to x-axis or the rows basically, and one axis axis 1 acts on all columns in each rows. Okay, so so what I am going to do is I'm going to specify axis 1. Okay, so suppose I have let's say I have a diagram here. So if I have this in front of you, let's say 1 2 3 4, right? Now if I'm using axis 1, axis 1 will act on all columns in each row. So each row is one row, two row. In each of this row, it will act on all columns. So it's basically an intersection of that row with the column I'm specifying, right? So if I use this understanding, I'll come here and then instead of saying drop like this, I will say df3 dot drop, drop, and here I'll specify c4 again, and then I'll also specify x is equals to 1, right? Now after that I am going to print of df3. So let us see the output. So output is run again. So you will see that before and after still it is the same value is there, right? Dropping has not happened. Why it is? Because by default, okay, so let me make a small change here. I'll say print of this, and I will say comma in pl, so it is in place equal to falsc, right? Now if I try to run this, so let me copy this line of code here, right? Okay, I had to put it here and I had to put it here, right? So let's try to run this. So you will see that now the column is gone in this particular statement only, meaning that generally when you say by default in place is false, means it is not affecting the original data frame. Until you don't say in place equal to true, that content will not be removed from the actual data frame, TRU. It is like from the temporary data frame it got related, but it has not affected the original. It is not in line, right? If I now do it like this, it will affect the original data frame as well, right? So if I right click and run it, so you will see now both are having none. Okay, here, oh sorry, now this time I cannot display it basically. So if I try to, after dropping, if I try to run this, you will see the change being reflected here as well, right? So basically uh, if you don't make it in place, right, it wouldn't, by default it is false. So in order to make sure that the data frame is actually affected, you have to make it true, and then only this will work for you. Fine. So please try this program. I'll ping it to you. Please try it out.